Hello, everybody. This is Rick Greenfield with Image Bloom. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining. We're going to wait just a few more minutes, well, maybe just 1 or 2 minutes to let a few more people get joined up, and then we will start the presentation. Hello again, everybody. This is Rick Greenfield, and I'm going to wait just about 1 more minute. We're still getting a lot of people joining, so please hold tight and we'll get started soon. Okay, so I think we're going to get started. Wow, we have a lot of people join today, so that's really exciting. I guess this is a hot topic right now, given the state of our world with this crazy pandemic. I know that a lot of you are experiencing slowdowns, and I know that all of us would like to obtain more business. I'm also getting a message that hopefully my audio is okay, but it told me for a second that it was degraded a bit. But anyways, so I know this is a very important topic that everyone's thinking about right now, how to attract more business. But let me introduce myself first and foremost. I'm Rick Greenfield. I'm currently the COO of Image Bloom Incorporated. We're a patient recruiting company, but we also do a lot of marketing and branding for clients across the country, and actually we work internationally in several other countries. Image Bloom is actually my fourth business. I've also run a very large research site, which is Clinical Trials of Texas, still operating today. Adaptix Clinical Solutions was a small boutique CRO that I was part owner in and managed for a few years. I'm currently the CEO of Real Time Software Solutions and also the COO of Image Bloom. So, you know, I've definitely had my hand in running businesses, and I do believe that one pillar of success that I have really hung my hat on is the fact that I've always worked very hard to make sure that my companies had good branding strategies in place to get our name out there, to make sure that people knew who we were, to get our services noticed. So I wanted to share some of the things that I believe are key in being effective at this. Specifically for sites and site networks, the challenge of marketing yourself so that you're visible to sponsors and CROs, and hopefully attracting them to come to you for more business. And I understand completely how challenging that can be. And I think one of my biggest frustrations many times was performing studies and doing an outstanding, excellent job for a sponsor, even getting emails about what a great job we did as a site, and then finding out that the next phase of studies had initiated and we weren't even called to be considered as a site for participation. So I think making sure that you're consistently getting your company out there is very important. So we're going to talk about that today. There's lots of different ways that you can market your business. You can have a dedicated BD person that spends all day reaching out and calling people and chasing leads. There's companies out there that assist with business development activities, ClinEdge being one that I've worked with and I know does a great job in that particular area. But what we're talking about is what you can do and how you can create a brand and get that brand out there. So let me make sure my stuff is working. Here we go. So our objectives today: 1, understand the purpose and goals of B2B marketing. 2, explore ideas for creating and delivering your branded message. Identify methods to target your audience and get your site noticed. And today, just know that when I'm talking about a site, I may use the term site or site network interchangeably. Obviously, this would apply to either scenario. We also are going to understand how to determine your branding strategy and budget, and discuss expected short and long-term ROI of B2B investments. So we're going to start with a polling question today, just to kind of make sure everybody's alive and well, and I certainly hope everyone is doing well. How many of you are currently have a branding marketing B2B strategy to attract new sponsors and CROs in place? So how many of you are currently doing this? Yeah, we'll leave it at that. So I'm kind of curious to see how many sites out there have something in place now to attract sponsors and CROs. We'll wait just another 10 seconds. All right, let's see the results. Okay, well, interesting. So 43% yes, 57% no. So I think what we're looking at today is for those of you who are managing some B2B strategies. How are you doing? Are you doing all you could be doing? Maybe you can add to that. For those of you that are not, maybe this will give you some food for thought to implement this type of marketing. So the purpose and goals of B2B marketing. So obviously to attract existing, new, and prior sponsors and CROs to consider your site or site network for new and or ongoing study opportunities. And as I mentioned, we're not just maybe looking for new leads. We're wanting to also make sure that we're reaching out to people that we've already had contact with, sponsors we've already worked with, to continue to put our name in front of them and make sure they're considering us for each and every opportunity that comes our way. So this will be B2B marketing tactics and then remarketing strategies. And that's the idea of continuing to remarket to folks that you've already marketed to before. Develop a unique brand that defines your business and creates industry-wide awareness as a visual association with your brand's message. And there's a whole process that goes into developing your brand. Just that alone, the development of your brand, the strategies that go into that can be hours and hours of time and collaboration with you and your team, and perhaps other outsourced parties that can assist with those activities to help you really develop that solid brand. But the idea here is to build credibility, share your expertise, and build trust with your messaging. We want to build loyalty. So companies, sponsors, and CROs, they want to work with sites that share core values. And even working on your core values can be such an integral part of developing your brand and making sure that everything you do relates back to your core values. And then brand recognition. So what we really want to do is we want to come up with that brand, and then we want to put tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, over time, millions of impressions into the marketplace. And all of this is going to help you stand out. And what I believe, even just looking at our polling numbers here, you're the people that decided to join this webinar today to learn more about it. There are so many other sites that aren't even thinking about this. And I think percentage-wise, it's a very small number of sites and site networks that are really either engaging in B2B marketing or doing it very well. So if you are successful with your strategy, I think you have a very high likelihood of getting noticed and standing out. So branding is who you are. Essentially, all topics, platforms, advertisements, digital social media posts discussed throughout this presentation, the goal would to make sure that they all have a consistent look, feel, and messaging. So that's part of building that brand and then getting it out there and making sure that it's really just association, that people see your message, your branded logos and look, and they think of you. Start building recognition through impressions. You need to ensure that there is repetition in the look and feel of the ads as well as the messaging. And the messaging can change over time, but each message should be built into a campaign that delivers many thousands of impressions, and they would all still need to have that consistency, that overarching consistency with the color schemes and making sure that you have that logo in there. This is an example of our IB Recruit service, which is our call center. Just some ideas around logos, different forms of the logo that work for different applications, but as you can see, they all have a very similar look and feel. And then as we develop new products, our voicemail capture system built into our portal, our mobile app, even this presentation, all of them have that similar look and feel. So hopefully when people see something that we're putting out there, they can instantly associate it back to Image Bloom. So the basics of a brand. A brand is the face of your business. And so of course we have examples like Nike and Amazon here, Google, Facebook. And when you see these logos, I bet you have a lot of reaction to them. You know exactly who these folks are and what they do. If you see these in advertising and marketing as you're online or you're driving down the road, you instantly associate with that company. So we want to help develop that professional logo and then put it on everything that you distribute. Color scheme. So working on a consistent, recognizable color scheme that corresponds with the logo. Your mission and vision, you may already have a mission and vision, but your mission and vision should definitely drive your messaging as well as the objectives that you have. So that would really be the specifics of each campaign and what services you're marketing, and making sure that's part of your messaging. And then, as I mentioned, your core values, and each and every one of your campaigns and all of your messaging should be consistently applied and held true to your core values. So that's honestly your test, is if we're going to run campaigns, they have to meet and stay in line with our core values. So ideas of, getting your, you can have all different types of marketing materials. Each one of these would have a different purpose, but the overall branding, the logos, the color schemes, everything should be consistent, and therefore you're going to create a very powerful message. These are just some examples of work that we've done. So another question. Do you feel that your website today adequately showcases your branded message to your potential B2B clients? And of course, this would be sponsors and CROs. Do you feel that your website currently caters to to sponsor and CRO visitors that are coming to your website? Give it 10 more seconds. All right, let's see the results. All right, well, similar, 56% saying no, 44% of you saying yes. That's great. If you're really confident in your website, that's a wonderful thing. We're going to talk about some of the elements of your website that I think you can check me on or check yourself on, make sure you have these elements. If you don't have this would be something to definitely focus on, because what I believe is that your website is the foundation of your strategy. And the reason why is because we're going to be putting ads out there and marketing your brand, and we want to drive people essentially to your website. But the first place people go when they want to find out more about who you are typically is going to be your website. So it needs to be focused to the visitors that you want to focus it to. So that professional look and feel is the first and foremost thing. Just the basic look of the website can give someone an impression right off the bat. If you are a professional organization who knows what you're doing and knows how to market your business. And that is important, obviously, to how you market to your local community and potential volunteers for your clinical research studies. So, and that is a challenge. So for clinical research sites and networks, you have to cater to two markets, not just one. So you're catering to your local market for volunteers and potentially doctors that you would want to work with, and then also to sponsors and CROs for B2B activity. So, but I think that if you can have have a great B2C marketing aspect to your website, that is something that the sponsors and CROs are going to take notice of. If you're good at marketing your business to your local community and attracting patients, then there's a good chance you know how to enroll to your studies too. The leadership page, I think, is also very important. I know for myself, if I go to a new website for a company, I like to check out the leadership. Who runs this company? Do I know these people? What is their experience and background? So making sure that you have your leadership focused on their great images, pictures. I go to websites all the time that have really grainy, horrible pictures of their leadership. I think they should be professional photos, and you should have great write-ups on your successes and who you are. Facility description, so the experiences of your site, successes that you've had, and the capabilities that you have. And I do think that oftentimes people do put a little bit more focus into capabilities. You'll see these long bulleted lists of, we have a crash cart and a blood pressure monitors and all this other stuff. I don't think it's bad, but I think really talking about your experience and successes that you've had is even more important when you're talking about your site and your facilities. And then all of the above would serve as landing pages to drive traffic to when you're doing marketing campaigns out there. So again, everything at the end of the day, for the most part, ends up at the website, and you're going to want to make sure your website is really good. A few additional things, calls to action for each of the various products and services that you offer. And so we're going to have a landing page. We're going to make sure there's a great call to action with a form to be completed. And then we want to make sure that we can discern when we receive these applications or these forms that we know exactly what page and what product that particular person was interested in. So that can be some work to from your web developers to make sure that you do have the different types of forms for the different services. Mobile optimization is also commonly overlooked. I think it's most people are on board with it today, but I still see plenty of opportunity for a lot of folks' sites to be really mobile first and cater to a mobile audience. And if you're not catering to a mobile audience, you're missing greater than half of your traffic. A lot of statistics out there say that greater than 70, sometimes even greater than 80% of your traffic is on a tablet or phone. So you need to cater to that audience. And then also having your social media linking on there so people can link out to your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn pages. Again, showing that you know what you're doing and you have a presence out there in the digital world, further exemplifying who you are and what you're doing. So poll question number 3. Which marketing channel or platform do you think is best for a B2B strategy, reaching those sponsors and CROs? What do you think is the best platform for that? You're selecting between Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, email, or Twitter. And we'll do 5 more seconds. Great, let's see the results. LinkedIn, all right, very good. So yes, I agree. However, I think that you want to have a multifaceted approach. LinkedIn is great for a lot of reasons. Of course, your target audience is there. You can target different positions within sponsor CRO companies and really target your messaging to those folks. But I don't think that it should stop there. So consistent posting on B2B platforms will begin your journey of branding. So first of all, just to kind of touch on what that message should look like is professionally designed. You also have to know how to place and promote these posts. So the promotional aspects is putting dollars behind these ads to get more impressions. If you put an organic post on any of these platforms, maybe 10 or if you're lucky, 100 people are going to see it. Put some money behind it, and then thousands of people will see it. Including internal content in your posting. So staff highlights, pictures of the staff in the in-office type pictures, and then any events that you're going to. There's a lot of relatability there. Sponsors and CROs are going to see that you're out in the community or you're working hard and you're having successes at your site, it's another impression, it's another opportunity to get noticed. And then relevant content forwards. So that would be showing that your awareness and passion for knowledge and what's going on out in the world, and then finding relevant articles that sort of parallel with what you're doing or what you believe in, and putting that important content out there. And that can be a reason for people to follow you as well. If they see that you're providing great content and content forwards for industry news, then that would be a good reason for them to follow you. So it's pretty simple to make sure that those get posted on LinkedIn and Twitter. I think it is also great to just duplicate those efforts onto Facebook and Instagram. Everyone is still using those platforms as well, so there's an opportunity for impressions there. But I think one that also gets lost a lot of time is Google AdWords, which I think is probably the second most or second best way to market in a B2B world, so that you can have AdWords campaigns, display ads running out there. So that's essentially for people that are searching for your services. And so if you optimize keywords correctly, you can show up as a result when people are looking for a certain type of site, maybe the types of populations that you work with, rare disease populations. So you can pop up as a potential result or a site that they could work with. Press releases. So sharing unique successes, newsworthy events that are happening at your site, and gaining more exposure and credibility by getting those press releases out there. Knowing how to write a press release, knowing how to get it shared into the community is something that usually takes some experience. Brochures and other collateral, these are all just different ways that you can move your branded message out into the atmosphere. And so that would be making sure that you have handouts for conferences and for on-site visitors and monitors. Those can, of course, be turned into PDFs that you can email to potential clients that you're talking with. If you do have a BD person or any sponsors or CROs that you're talking about potential studies with. And so that could also be all of your handouts, brochures, business cards, swag, all of that would need to be branded and make sure it has your branded message included. Other channels out there are things like Zymewire, where you can mine for studies that are either upcoming or ongoing, and you can reach directly out to those potential contacts. So then let's also talk about remarketing. So I think it's really important, again, to chase down the people that you already have connections with. And I would recommend reevaluating what your processes are for building a contact database, and making sure that for every study you are conducting, that you are capturing who the product manager is, medical monitor, all of your CRAs, any other contacts related with the study, and then putting those into a contact database and making sure they get added to your monthly newsletter. And so it doesn't have to be quite as extensive as a newsletter, because newsletters can be a lot of content, a lot of writing, but certainly an email update, an email blast that has some current events in it, studies that you're working on. Also maybe talks about what makes your site or site network different and why sponsors should work with you. This is a sort of a template that you can have set up in a email marketing tool like MailChimp, and it can actually be a fairly quick process to change that, make changes to that each month and send out new information. So it's like a newsletter, but obviously much more simple to keep up. And then you're pushing that out to thousands of people every month, and they're getting that email. A lot of people think that email is dead. It's not as powerful as it used to be, but it definitely still works, and it's still another opportunity for a very valuable impression every month. And then on-site brochures. And so one of the things I used to do at my site, and I know they still do, is they have brochures in each monitoring room that the monitors can read while they're there. They can take with them. Maybe they want to recommend you to one of their colleagues for another study. And so making sure there's opportunities to share those brochures with on-site visitors as well. So the idea of building your digital presence, this is another area that definitely takes a lot of experience, but knowing how to create and design these ads and place them is, certainly something that you can bring in-house and find people that know how to do this type of work. But the goal is to drive traffic to your website landing pages, and get those calls to action. You can also work to create followers of your platforms. So with the content that you're sharing, for instance, on Facebook, you can do like campaigns. On LinkedIn, you can do campaigns to get followers. That should be at least a small portion of your budget. And by having those followers, you're guaranteeing more impressions, but you're able to bring value to the people that follow you. And then direct lead generation is another form of advertising that you can do through these portals that actually circumvent your website in a lot of cases, but it's an opportunity where if someone is interested, they can reach out to you directly through that channel, and you'll get essentially a notification that they would like to speak with you. And with all of these different tactics going on every single month, as the months progress, you're going to get thousands, if not millions, of impressions out there into the marketplace for your site and site network. So here's kind of the fun part of this presentation for me. It's really talking about sort of the conceptual aspects of branding and what the ultimate effects of branding are. And I think this is where it can really hopefully click in your minds the value of branding. And so first of all, the goal is to attract the right customers. And so by marketing your strengths, sponsors and CROs that are seeking a site network are going to believe in your capabilities and are going to react to your messaging, your calls to action. And so because digital marketing is so advanced today, you can truly target your messaging to the people you want to target to. And then the message itself hopefully speaks to the audience that is seeking the type of work that you do. Land more studies. So the quality and repetition of your message is going to build credibility and loyalty. People see that you're out there, they're constantly seeing your message. That's going to lead to a greater desire for them to select your site. They have a whole list of sites to choose from, but they've seen your site over and over again. They see your messaging. That builds credibility and loyalty. Commanding higher prices. So sponsors and CROs are going to have a perception that you are a knowledge leader, that you have more experience, and that you deliver quality, and they're going to have confidence in your site, and they're going to accept a higher price so that they can work with you. And then boost your value. And this is a huge one, and I don't think many people get this, but boosting the value of the business, it's a long-term goal, but it typically, good branding is going to increase your financial performance for the short term, but you're also looking at a much larger valuation down the road as you build this brand. And so the continuum is essentially like this. We're building a perception that is going to evoke emotion, that is going to create actions. Perception, emotion, action. And so if you even go back, the perception is strength. And then that means there's emotion of belief, and that turns into a reaction. The perception of credibility and loyalty leads to a desire to select you. And the perception of your knowledge and experience and quality evokes confidence, meaning that the sponsors will accept higher prices. So really it's a neat way to look at this continuum that we're basically trying to create and deliver with a branded message. Now we talk money, right? So everybody wants to understand cost, and everything costs money. Right now, money is super tight, and you're probably thinking the last thing you should be investing dollars in is branding and marketing right now. That might be true, or at least to be a little bit more frugal with your budgets. But this is still something you could be gearing up for when the economy comes back. I think some sites and site networks right now are actually using this as an opportunity to really get their message out there. Research is getting a lot of exposure right now with COVID-19. The idea of vaccine studies and treatment studies coming up, really nationally and around the world, clinical research is something that people are talking about. So maybe right now is a good time to consider at least beginning your branded journey. So it is challenging to demonstrate a direct correlation between successful branding and measurable returns. And this is something I have to talk to customers about all the time, because a lot of times they want to see quantifiable ROI. It's very difficult to show that with a branding B2B strategy, it is typically a long-term return that you have to believe in to a certain degree. But building an authentic brand, it does have immeasurable long-term results that are very difficult to quantify, but the value is truly priceless. So it is integral to influencing customer behavior, and it should be considered an investment that will bring increased returns throughout the life of your company. So it's a very long graph that extends out into the distance, but it trends upward, and those dollars that you put in, I am very, very confident that they come back to you many times over. But again, the ability to quantify the direct results of these dollars is challenging. So, but this is what I believe is kind of a general idea of what you should consider spending. And you can spend less, but I think less than what I'm offering here is you're going to really diminish those returns. I do believe, especially as it relates to digital marketing and branding, the more you spend, the more you get. But I think a good rule of thumb is 2 to 3.5% of your total revenues. Smaller companies will need to invest at a larger percentage, unfortunately, and the reason for that is because there is kind of that bottom level threshold that if you don't at least hit that number, then you're probably not going to see great results. The good news is that as you grow, as you become a larger company, you can probably consider a smaller percentage as it relates to your total revenue. So here's some examples. A $1 million company should probably invest around $35,000 per year. That is their total spend for their branded B2B marketing message to get their name out there and attract sponsors and CROs. As they grow and become a $2.5 million company, the number goes up, but the percentage goes down. So now they should probably be spending more like 62,000. It's basically just 2.5 million times 2.5%, but somewhere in that area per year to market their company to potential sponsors and CROs. And then a $5 million company should probably be looking at spending 100K plus per year, but that represents only 2% of their total revenues. So reinvesting back into your company to basically grow your company and get that exposure, build that brand, build that value into who you are. So what this does not include is local branding for B2C patient recruitment. So this is not patient recruitment. This is trying to get your site out there in front of sponsors and CROs and build that branded message in the community. So what is included in what I mentioned is total spend here. So that would be the cost to build the professional grade strategy, design, placement, results tracking. And I guess I'm actually going to go back to the prior slide and just say that in most cases here, your total spend is less than an FTE, unless you're getting up into the 5 million range, and then maybe that's a little bit more than an FTE of someone of the caliber that you would need to perform these types of services. Or you could be looking at outsourcing, which I'll talk about in a minute, which is obviously something that we do. But this is something that you can bring in-house or you can outsource, and we'll kind of talk about the pros and cons of that. The cost of professional grade strategy, design, placement, and results tracking is included. The cost to promote the branded message is also included. So if you think about that, if you were to hire someone to perform these activities as an FTE, what would you pay that person? That's someone who's going to manage these campaigns, build and design all these campaigns, have the knowledge to do it. So they're probably going to be relatively expensive. And then you still have to have a promotional budget to promote the message on these various channels. What I'm offering here from a price tag standpoint is that for the prices mentioned in the prior slide, it could include both, which is quite affordable. So that would be your LinkedIn cost, Google AdWord cost, press release distribution of the media, website updates for blogs, SEO, analytics. And then the only other thing that this excludes is any conference fees in the form of B2B branding. So obviously exhibiting, attendance fees, travel, lodging, those can rack up a pretty hefty bill pretty quickly. So just to mention some other forms of marketing and branding, so that would be participating in those conferences and industry specific events. Obviously, this would add on to your base budget. And yeah, I've seen everything under the sun, but a sponsorship, you could sponsor putting your name on the bags, or having impressions on the mobile app or the program for the conference, having a quarter page ad like in the program. A quarter page is a lot less expensive than a half page or a full page. Just depends on how much you want to spend. But I do think it's important, if you're trying to get your name out there, conferences are a great place for you to put some dollars into sponsoring something so that your name's included along with many of the others. But if you are going to exhibit, you're going to have to look at creating booths, backdrops, banners, flyers, brochures, other giveaways like swag, and make sure that's all been budgeted for and included in there. And then you're also going to want to make sure that all of those things carry that branded message forward. And then speaking opportunities. Now, these can be paid or unpaid. I think in many cases, unpaid if you're working with your principal investigators, any of your KOLs at your site. A lot of the conference managers are looking for people who are willing to get up and share best practices. There are other paid opportunities that you might consider, which does oftentimes give you the opportunity to maybe put a little bit more of a marketing spin on your presentation. Typically unpaid, you're really trying to stray away from any type of a marketing message, but just the fact that it's your doctor from your site talking about best practices brings a lot of credibility to your site or site network. So let's talk about the do-it-yourself aspect. So I think I am a big proponent, especially as it relates to B2B sponsor CRO type of marketing. Maybe I'm a little biased, but the reality is I really believe that it's just a fact that trying to do it on your own is very challenging. There's so many different skill sets that are included in a B2B branded message to sponsors and CROs, and I actually think you'll spend more and get less. I know sites that do it and do it with success, so it's certainly possible, but here's the reality. You need to have website expertise on your team, someone that knows how to manage and perform maintenance and has SEO knowledge to really make sure that it's driving your branded message, developing ads, and knowing all the elements and good content and design aspects to put into an advertising campaign. Not to mention placement and management of these campaigns on all of the various channels, and really knowing how to leverage all those channels and how to promote on those channels. The professional design expertise, graphics, ad concepts, video animation, pre-roll video if you want to do some Google pre-roll. Press release writing and placement, as I mentioned, that in and of itself is something that really does require some experience and even some contacts within the industry to get those press releases out there. And then analytics tracking, knowing how to set up analytics, track all the traffic to give you the best knowledge that is possible on how well these campaigns are faring for you. Are you seeing hopefully large increases in traffic? Is the traffic turning into inquiries and potential leads, and at the end of the day, new studies for your site? If you don't have analytics in place and you don't know how to utilize analytics, you're never going to know. Analytics does at least give you some ideas on how well things are working. And then results reporting. And I already kind of mentioned that, but essentially how to compile all of those analytics to provide reports for upper management to demonstrate the return on the investment. So how to implement B2B branding. So due to the complexity, depth of knowledge, number of skill sets, I do think it's a good reason to consider outsourcing. So when you outsource, you essentially have an entire team of all the people with all of those skill sets mentioned on the previous slide working for you at a fraction of the cost. So you're going to get professional content design, so you're going to automatically be putting yourself into that category of looking very, very professional and like you know what you're doing in this industry. You're going to get the best multi-channel approach and people that really know how to use those channels. And I mentioned advanced skill sets in all the needed areas, and hopefully the best short and long-term results. And at the end of the day, the highest ROI. So if you think about, again, the budgets that I was speaking of earlier, and so the cost of those budgets, which I think, again, in many cases are less than an FTE or right around an FTE, but that also includes your direct spend. outsourcing, I think, is kind of hard to beat when it comes to B2B marketing for your branded message to get more sponsors and CROs coming your direction and bringing you more studies. So I hope this has been some helpful information. I would love to know if anyone has any questions. And I am ready to take questions. So essentially, I believe you would use the chat feature within this to submit questions. And I'm trying to see if I have, Michelle, you might have to help me here.
Yeah, so everyone, if you have any questions, feel free to send them now. We did have a few questions come in as we were going. So the first question is, do you typically target US-based sponsors or everyone?
Sorry, could you ask the question one more time? I had my audio messed up here.
Yeah, sure. So it was, do you typically target US-based sponsors or everyone?
Well, that's a great question. So that would probably depend a little bit on the type of work that each client does. If you're looking at, say, a campaign on LinkedIn, you can gate it to just the US, but we don't normally do that because there are sponsors and CROs around the globe that are still conducting studies within the US. So I would say that is certainly an option. We typically don't gate to just the US, and depending again on the types of studies that you're doing and where the concentrations of the types of sponsors that you work with are at, you may want to consider gating. And what that will essentially do is potentially save some of your budget. If you have a limited budget to work with, I would target the specific areas that you know there's a good concentration of the types of sponsors and CROs that you want to work with. Whereas if you have a little bit larger budget, maybe go ahead and open it up to a wider audience.
Okay, awesome. And then the next question is, the site uses CenterWatch. So do you feel sponsors and CROs are still looking at that site to recruit sites?
Well, I hate to really talk about anyone specifically. Um, I think that I think I'll just say it like this. I think it's fairly limited. I don't think that that is where most sponsors are going to find sites. And so I think really what you're hoping is that you can put a listing on CenterWatch and that sponsors are going to locate your site as a result of going on there and searching. And I think that is going to be a very limited subset of opportunities for you.
Okay. And then the next question says that they are awful at designing brochures, but they love the brochures that Image Bloom creates. They're curious to know what tool they can use to create those kind of brochures for monitors.
Well, I mean, the tools are Adobe products. It's not really tools, it's the know-how, it's the designers and the knowledge. Unfortunately, I promise you all, I'm not just here to sell Image Bloom to you here today. I think, I won't say Image Bloom. I think you need to work with a professional outfit, a professional agency to really build an excellent brochure. Certainly, that's something that we specialize in, and we have teams of people that do that. But otherwise, you would need to find someone who has design skills and really knows how to leverage the suite of Adobe products to, InDesign being probably the number one for a brochure. But if you know someone that knows how to use InDesign and has graphic capabilities, then that would be your avenue. Otherwise, give us a call.
Okay, great. And so the next question is, what do you think is a good budget for a LinkedIn campaign?
Well, it's going to depend. And so, one, it's going to depend on how many messages you have. If we're talking about a single message, and so that's kind of how we break it up with a client is like, what are the different messages? Like it could be, I want women's health studies, or I want psych studies, or I want diabetes studies, or vaccine studies. And so each of those is a specific message, and we want to try to target advertising to acquire those types of studies and reach out to those types of sponsors and CROs. So I'm going to answer the question as if we're talking about a single branded message that's accomplishing that single objective. And I will say that, and I would also qualify it as a month-long campaign. And we typically like to say that like somewhere around $750 for a month-long spend to promote a message is kind of on the starter end. You can always go cheaper, and you can spend a whole lot more. And but I think if you go less than say $750 a month for a message, you're dropping your impressions way down. The laws of repetition don't really play in as well, and you're probably not going to get the same kind of return as if you spend 1,000 or 1,500. And so just some things to think about. But I think a good starting point would be $750 for that campaign, and then see if you're happy with the results. And maybe you can get away with spending less, and maybe you need to spend a little bit more.
Okay. And then another question is, what has been your most successful strategy in landing meetings with sponsors and CROs at conferences?
Well, I will be honest, I've never been super good at that. I have friends that are super good at that. And it's time. And that's probably why I'm not good at it, because you have to invest the time to reach out. You can use the portals that a lot of these conferences have to reach out to folks and try to schedule meetings. But even those portals, I think a lot of people aren't even logging into them, so they don't see your messages. So I've tried that route with minimal success. I think getting a hold of the conference attendee lists is a great way to start, and then really individually taking the time, or having someone on your staff take the time to identify targets and then reach out to those targets prior to the conference and try to set up meetings. And if you invest the time, you can be very successful, because I know people who have done it. Otherwise, the strategy being that you would be at the conference, maybe exhibiting, and then you have a lot of great potential leads coming to you. But setting up those meetings, unfortunately, I think the best answer is you got to put the time and effort into specifically reaching out to the people you want to meet with.
Okay, awesome. And then one question, and then we'll have one last question, and then I think we'll be about out of time. But this question is, will you be able to provide a copy of this presentation to us so they can share it with their team and those who did not attend?
Well, I don't know. Michelle, can you answer that
Yes,
question?
so the answer to that is yes, absolutely. We will be sending out a follow-up email tomorrow with a copy of the presentation and the video.
Well, and one of the questions on here was, how would a site get a quote? And here you go. We'd love it if you reach out to us. We'd love to talk with you about your goals and help you get there. And if you want to let us at least get you started on this journey, we'd be more than happy to do it and help you be successful in attracting more sponsors and CROs. So I just want to thank my team for putting this together, and I want to thank all of the people that attended today for your great questions. I hope it was valuable to you, and look forward to seeing you hopefully soon in person at the next conference or the next opportunity. So again, thank you all so much for being here today. And have a good one.